Believe it or not, we've had this massive RV electrical system on our fifth wheel for almost 2 years. Today I'm going to go over what worked, what we do differently, and one major problem we had. A quick refresher for everyone, in the summer of 2023 we partnered with Rich Solar and Battleborn Batteries on designing what we considered to be our dream RV electrical system. This was on our new Alliance fifth wheel, and it consists of 2,750 watts of solar on the roof, 4 lithium Battleborn game changer batteries in the 24 volt configuration, and dual Victron Multi-Plus 3000s, doubling their power output to 4,800 continuous watts. And to put this into some perspective, we've had just about every size electrical systems in our RVs. We started out in a Sprinter van with a 50 watt solar panel and a couple 100 amp hour AGM batteries. I didn't know much back then, but I knew I wanted more solar. So we put on 3 100 watt panels and kept the standard lead acid battery setup. But we quickly learned that AGM batteries charge very slowly the last 20%. So we were basically running around with 80% full batteries that you can only use to 50% before damaging them. So after about a year of trying to make that work, we finally entered the world of lithium. And the first time we went out boondocking with our 300 watts of solar, we were actually able to charge those lithium batteries back up to 100%. Something we were never able to do with lead acid batteries because of how long it takes for them to actually charge all the way full. So with our 300 watts of solar, we added 400 amp hours of Battleborn batteries and a Victron Multi-Plus 3000. So we were able to boondock for a week at a time with no worries about the electrical system. So that was with the 12 volt fridge running, using an induction cooktop, microwave. We even ran the AC every once in a while. So fast forward a couple years and we moved into a 26-foot travel trailer, and that's where we installed 1,200 watts of solar, 810 amp hours of Battleborn batteries, and the 3000 Multi-Plus Victron unit as well. This system was a big step up from the van. With 4 times the solar and double the lithium batteries, we really could do a lot more in the travel trailer. Plus you add in the big tanks and we were able to sit uninterrupted out in the middle of nowhere for well over a week. We could push it towards that 2-week mark and it was great. So that brings us to our current fifth wheel, the one I'm sitting in right now. Let's talk about this system. This is our biggest and baddest system so far. And first off, I want to say I'm a firm believer in putting on as many solar panels as you can fit and you can afford. I don't think you need to go crazy though with it, putting panels every which way, as much as you could possibly fit, unless you really plan on using it. But us having almost 3,000 watts of solar is almost hard to explain. As long as we're sitting in the sunshine, we can run an AC all day long, our giant 12 volt fridge, electric water heater, and we'll still be sitting at the end of the day with 100% batteries. It is really hard to use all of the power in this system, especially if you're sitting in the sun. But of course, overnight is where the size of your battery bank comes into play. So typically our big fridge is the largest draw overnight, and we don't turn anything off like the inverters. We just leave those on 24/7, and roughly our system uses about 100 amp hours of battery overnight, which is around 10% of our overall system. So the next day, charging back up to 100 is usually done before noon, and that's with running a lot of power in the morning, like the electric water kettle, air fryer, induction cooktop, fireplace sometimes, and even that electric water heater. So it's really the combination of the large amount of solar and the large battery bank that give us so much freedom in this particular system. Because you could have one or the other, a lot of solar and a little bit of batteries, or a lot of batteries and a little bit of solar. Really, you need the two to work together, and when you find that perfect balance for your lifestyle, it's pretty amazing. But I gotta say, when we lived in the rooftop tent, all we had was a 90 watt solar panel and a single 100 amp hour Battleborn battery. but we still used the electric water kettle, had a 12-volt fridge running 24/7, and even used an electric blanket to keep us warm. So let's talk about our decision to go with 24 volts instead of the standard 12-volt system, which most people are much more accustomed to. So I have two batteries in parallel and two batteries in parallel. So basically they're two 12-volt banks. And then to series connect them, you just go from positive to negative. So first I want to say the system has worked exactly how we designed it to. But I do want to throw a word of caution to those DIYers out there who are thinking about doing it to their system. If you're paying a professional installer or have a really good base of a standard 12-volt RV electrical system knowledge, you should probably be fine. But if you're trying to learn all the basics of a regular 12-volt system and your RV system in general, and then try throwing in something a little bit more complicated like the 12-volt equation, that's a pretty big curveball and it could be a little overwhelming at first. I know it took me quite a bit of research just to kind of wrap my head around how the installation and even just buying the different parts would be. So I'm really glad that we did it now looking back at it, but I do remember at the time it was pretty overwhelming and it was a lot of extra research and a lot of extra stress when you're trying to plan like your entire RV electrical system. It's just something else that you have to learn because it's just not as common as 12-volt system is. But basically what I learned as a general good rule of thumb is that if you're going to design a system that has a 3,000 watt or larger or multiple inverter system, you're going to probably want to go with a 24 volt or maybe even a 48 volt system. But if you're kind of just planning on using that one inverter less than 3,000 watts, you're probably fine with just going with the traditional 12-volt system. So because we were planning on having two inverters in this system, I definitely wanted to experiment, I guess, and learn more about the 24-volt system, and I wanted to put that in. And one of the main reasons was I wanted to be able to run one large appliance all day long if we're out in the sunshine and not really worry about it. So for example, running the air conditioner all day, 8 hours if you had to. And what I mean by that is since it's 24 volts, it's twice the voltage and it runs at half the amperage through the wiring. So less amps, less heat, more safe in my opinion. So it's the same watts, but it's half the amps. So for example, if you ran the AC in our van or our travel trailer, it was almost 150 amps. And in our fifth wheel here, it's less than 75. So overall, I'm happy with the 24 volt configuration. And after the learning curve of the installation, we have not had one single issue. One of the major things you have to figure out is how do you run your new 24 volt system with your standard 12 volt RV systems like your lights, water pump, fridge, slides, hydraulic auto levelers. So luckily Victron has a pretty easy solution for that. It's a 24 volt to 12 volt converter, which takes the 24 volt batteries, converts it back down to 12 volt so that you can run all of your standard RV systems. And we did two of those in parallel because they're only rated at 70 amps each. And you might not know it, but your hydraulic slides and levelers can be well over 100 amps. So we put two in parallel to be able to handle those boosts as we're operating the hydraulic system. So overall, the 24 volt configuration has been working great. Like I said, we haven't had one single issue. After the learning curve, it basically just works as it should. So I don't really have any regrets with the 24 volt. And if you've noticed, more and more people are doing it in the past couple years. You're actually seeing even more 48 volt systems, the server rack batteries and systems and things like that. So I have a feeling it's going to be getting more and more popular. All right, on to the dual inverter setup. Very similar to the 24 volt thing, the dual inverter setup was very complicated and difficult to learn how to install it yourself or DIY it. There was not a lot of information out there really detailing how to do the dual inverter setup. And my biggest holdup was, how do you really wire the 120 volt side? We ended up going with an 8x8 box, 2 of them, as well as these little Morris connectors. And I think it turned out really, really good. So this bottom box is the AC in. You can see my watchdog right there. So the shore power plug on the wall connects to the watchdog. The watchdog then comes into the top, and then basically we're using these 3-part Morris connections to then have the 2 AC wires come in. And so it's kind of the opposite for the box up here. The 2 wires will be AC out for the inverters. They go back into the box, combine back into a single run of 6 gauge, 3 with a ground, which then goes back to the distribution panel. So obviously twice the inverters, it's twice the cost, twice the weight, twice the space, twice the wiring, and twice as hard to install. It's just a lot more wire to work with, and if you don't do this for a living, it's a pretty big pain in the butt to do. But now that it's all done and over with, I think on a larger application like this, it's a pretty good idea to have the dual inverter system like that if you plan on really, really juicing the power. I mean, off-grid, we can have the AC running, the microwave, and air fryer running all at the same time and not even worry a bit about it. We can actually run all 3 ACs at the same time if we wanted to, but I rarely even do that when I'm plugged in. Here is kind of a fun scenario. We are at an RV park with 30 amp hookup, and we have all 3 air conditioners running. So the AC loads is 3 air conditioners. You can see it's about 3,700 watts of power. I have the grid throttled down to 28 amps, so it won't go past that. So you can see it's pulling 2,700 watts from the grid, and then it takes the rest of the power from our solar panels. There is barely any power coming in or going out of the battery, so it's staying pretty much even. So 2 air conditioners are coming off the grid, 1 air conditioner is coming off the solar panel, and another interesting scenario with a system like this. So there is one big negative to the dual inverters, at least in the Victron case, and that's if you're trying to dial down your current limit input. Let's say you're mooch docking at a friend's house and you want to use their 15 amp circuit. With the dual inverters, the lowest you can turn that down to is 19 amps, which is more than the 15 amp circuit. So you basically can't use that power assist like you would in a single inverter system. So that single inverter you can turn down to, I think, 9.5 amps, which is well below the 15 amp. So all you're going to pull from the house is that 9.5 amps, and then the rest you can boost from your system, I think up to about 20 amps. So with the dual inverter setup, you really need to kind of be minimally plugged into a 20 amp circuit if you're going to use that power assist feature. So this really wasn't that big deal to us anyways, because we really don't even need to plug into somebody's house unless we're sitting in the shade for more than a week. We have literally sat at my dad's front yard with no plugins, no generators, running the AC, and can be fine. And there is a little workaround you can do with the dual inverter setup. And that's if you switch the inverters to charger only, it then allows you to lower that input down to the single digits if you want to. You can even use the 15 amp circuit as a pass-through power. You just can't use the power assist feature. So kind of a little bit of a workaround, and honestly for us, not a huge deal. But if you are a big mooch docker, let's say you plug into 15 amp circuits all the time, that might be a reason that you don't want the dual inverter setup. So overall, we are happy with the dual inverter setup. It doesn't really matter if we're plugged in or not plugged in, Basically, we can just run like a normal house all the time. But again, I want to caveat that one inverter is going to be enough for most people. I think, you know, maybe the dual inverter is kind of all the rage right now, and more people are doing it, which is fine if you're having a professional installer do it and you just want the biggest and the best. But just know it does add some complexity to it. And for most people, when they're out there boondocking, one Victron Multiplus is fine to run one big appliance and all your regular small stuff at the same time. So you can run an AC, you know, if you want to. You just have to shut that AC off if you're going to then use the microwave or air fryer or induction cooktop or something like that. You just have to pay more attention to the appliances you're using. Whereas with the dual inverter setup, you can pretty much run 3 giant appliances at the same time, which is a lot when you're off grid, and not worry about it. So what was that one big mistake that we made? Well, we put in the Hughes Power Watchdog, the same one that we had in the travel trailer that we loved. And for some reason, this one in our new dual Victron inverter setup, it would not allow us to plug in to a 50 amp power pedestal. If we plug into 50 amp, I get this error most of the time, neutral missing. And it doesn't allow any power into the RV. So right off the bat, we had to use a dog bone adapter and plug into a 30 amp circuit. I think it's some type of software glitch, and I think both companies know about it, but it must not affect enough people for them to fix it. So something to do with it not being able to detect a neutral when you first plug in, and hence it won't allow power to come from the power pedestal. So luckily there was a really easy fix for us. I just replaced the Hughes Power Watchdog with the Progressive Industries inline surge guard protector, and everything works perfectly. I just really liked the Bluetooth capability of the Power Watchdog. I enjoyed being able to see it on my phone. As soon as you plug in to the pedestal, you can look on your phone and see. But I mean, the Progressive Industries has a little monitor out by the power cord rail anyways, so not a huge deal. I know nowadays there are a lot of lithium battery options out there, and not just off brands, but a lot of good competition, which is a good thing because there is no one size fits all RVing solution. So having a little bit of competition is not a bad thing. But I will say you do got to do your research and see which brand, which system is going to work best for you. But I do want to add that Battleborn batteries is worth a good hard look if you're considering lithium batteries. We've had them in 4 different RV setups and haven't had one single problem with them. And our original ones that we put in the van way back in 2020 are still working great 5 years later. The change from lead acid to lithium really is life-changing. There's no maintenance, they're safe, they're reliable, they're charged faster, they last longer, they're lighter, and they give you more power. Overall, I don't think I'd really change anything on this system. I think it works perfectly for this 33-foot fifth wheel. I think the solar fit perfectly on the roof. It doesn't look crazy. There's no giant rack sticking up. Sometimes you can't even tell that there's solar up there, but having almost 3,000 watts is really unbelievable. And those 4 Battleborn game changers, being able to stick 2 of them underneath the stairs and then stack 2 of them kind of next to them, those were my 2 separate 24 volt battery banks. And the inverters right there on top of them. I mean, I don't have a huge pass through, and that whole system fit in there almost perfectly. Overall, we have plenty of solar, plenty of lithium batteries. If we're parked in the complete shade, we could last for right around 5 days. And if we're parked in the sunshine, it's inevitable. Like, you just don't run out of power. It's that massive of a system. It's a really good feeling. Oh, and probably the biggest thing that people have asked is, why don't you have a DC to DC charging system? So most big setups, that's kind of, you know, a complete way to do it. And I'm not saying a DC to DC is a bad thing, but what I do say is that when you have almost 3,000 watts of solar, you really don't need a DC to DC charger. So when you're driving down the road, which is when your DC to DC would be kicking in, you're typically getting 1,000 to 2,000 watts of solar, and you know, you're pretty much charged. So typically what we do is we run one AC while we're driving down the road, and we always end to wherever we're going with 100%. It just really does charge really well from the solar. But there was one time over the past 2 years where we just got done boondocking for 14 days, so our system was fairly low. The weather was getting kind of rough, cloudy, so it wasn't quite as bright and sunshiny. It was in the late fall, almost winter time. And on our big drive the next day, we barely charged at all because it was like basically raining out. It was super thick clouds. Ooh, it's 47 degrees in here. We did not charge at all today. That usually doesn't happen. That would be a good case for the DC to DC chargers, which we typically don't ever need because we have so much solar. But we went from, I think, 73 this morning to 77. Not good. So there, that would have been nice to have the DC to DC. Oh, and even on cloudy days, you'll be amazed how much solar you'll get. If it's a partly cloudy or even pretty overcast, you'll still get 5, 6, 7, 800 watts of solar through the clouds. It's pretty crazy. I want to say a big thanks to Battleborn Batteries for being a great partner to us over the past 5 years. And if you have any questions on this system or any of the other setups we've had over the years, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you, and we'll see you on the next video.
Ever wonder where the name Irene Iron Travels comes from? It's actually named after my online fitness and nutrition coaching business, Irene Iron Fitness. I help people move better, feel better, and eat better with strength training and real food. No fad diets, no harsh restrictions, no counting calories, and absolutely no processed food in a package. If you want to get stronger and feel better at any age, check the description below for the links with my new client special, or join in on our next and upcoming group challenge.